Hi, welcome to another leadership conversation from the Lead Center of Kansas. I'm Sue Mango, the Development Director at the Lead Center, and I'm here today with Anthea Skoufis, the Education and Engagement Director. And we're talking with Martha Gage and Lois Orth-Lopes about their love of the Lead Center and the Friends of the Lead board and their time on the board. Martha is our current board president for our 2021 season, and she is a retired higher education administrator. And Lois served as president for our 1920 season and is a retired USD 497 teacher. So as an icebreaker, first thing I want to do is ask everybody, what has been over the years your favorite Lead Center performance? So Martha, do you want to share something with us?
It's really hard to pick one. That's a difficult task. I think I would say the 25th anniversary celebration. In fact, that whole year was just a wonderful year. But starting out with the KU Collage concert on Friday night, and then going outside and seeing the wonderful quixotic dancers on the roof and on the sides of the building. It was beautiful, and what a wonderful kickoff to that year. So I could go on and on and on and tell you all my other favorites because there are so many, but that's one that stands out.
Excellent, excellent. How about you, Lois?
Well, I'm like Martha. It's really hard to choose, and I'm going to say more than one. I will never forget the opening scene of Ragtime. I think that was in the 2001 season, 2001-2 season, and it was incredibly beautiful. I'm a real fan of world music, and so I appreciated Yo-Yo Ma and the Silk Road very much. The Andai Union Mongolian singers. I love things like that, but I have to say probably one of the performances that will never leave me is the performance by a dance group. And it was several years ago. It was a very intense, almost Zen type of a performance. And by the time the last piece was complete, I realized I'd been holding my breath. So it was an amazing release. It was a challenging work, but really amazing. So I could go on. There are just so many wonderful performances that we've had.
Those are all really good ones. How about you, Anthea?
Oh, gosh. I have to say that my favorite moment was when Katie Lang sang Hallelujah. And that I was bawling the whole time. It was just the most beautiful, impassioned, just over the top, amazing piece. And then my favorite experience was a piece called Nearly Lear, which was an adaptation of Shakespeare by Susanna Hammett, who is an actor, and she created this work for primarily young audiences, middle school, high school, and it was an adaptation of Lear, and she plays all the parts, and she's a comedian as well, and it was the most touching, funny work I've ever experienced. And and I know there are a lot of board members in the community to this day that say that that's their favorite Lead Center performance. And it was so touching because Lear, that's about a father and daughters. And when she came, I've been trying to get Susanna here to the Lead Center for many years after I'd seen her perform it at IPE. And she, actually my father passed away like the day she arrived to do the rehearsals. And so the next day we did the high school performances and then the evening performance. And I just had to be there because it was cathartic and perfect and beautiful. So I'll never forget that. And I'm hoping she's touring that again. So I'm hoping we can bring it back because it's special.
Really, really good. Well, I'm going to have to say that mine was the Broadway play Something Rotten. And actually, I think I sat behind you, Martha. I mean, I just thought that show was hilarious. And I listened to the music all the time. And I just love it. I just think it was so catchy and so imaginative. I just loved it. So anyway, I love Broadway like everybody does. All right, so let's dive in with a couple questions here. I'm going to ask a few, and then Anthea is going to ask a few. So this question is for both of you ladies, and I'll start with Martha. I want to talk about the Lead Center's role in our community and how the performing arts enhance our life in Lawrence. And I wanted to know kind of what you thought about the performing arts role in Lawrence and how you think that the Lead Center helps fulfill that role. Martha?
Well, I guess I'd start with saying it's enjoyment. Who doesn't like to sit and listen and watch 42nd Street with all that tap dancing? I love that. Or Kristen Chenoweth and her performance. I thought she was just absolutely fantastic. So I just pure enjoyment. You just go get away from the troubles of the world and sit in the lead and enjoy. The second thing I would say is education. I knew nothing about hip hop music, dancing, but I had the opportunity to visit and watch Amara Sackett and Mr. Mike. What a charming couple, how talented they are. I don't know all there is to know about hip hop, and I'm sure I'll never be a hip hop dancer, but I learned something. It was new to me, and I really enjoyed it. And then I guess the third thing I'd say, there have been moments at the lead where we stood, all 2,000 plus of us, and sang together. So we come into that auditorium, each one different from the other, by many dimensions. But when we come to the lead and we sit next to each other and a performance begins on the stage, we are one. So for me, the role of the lead is to bring our community together. If but for a short time, we'll leave and our differences in politics and religion and all other things will become apparent to us. But for that 1 minute, the community is together. We're not emphasizing our differences, we're emphasizing our sameness. And so I would say that certainly is a role of the Lead Center.
Yeah, that's so true. And a lot of what you just said is in our mission statement. So that's really important. And we are very proud to have an organization that we work for and can attend that offers that to the community.
Right.
Lois, would you like to expand on that at all, or share some additional
that was what Martha said was beautiful, but I would just emphasize the fact that in addition to the entertainment and bringing the community together, I think that because of the programming that is done at the Lead Center, thanks to people like Anthea, we are given the opportunity to see such diversity, and that is in itself a teaching tool. And I know that I have so many different forms of music and art and performance that I truly enjoy, and yet there are still things that are new to me all the time. And I think of Black Violin and the value that that group has had in our community with our children, and how someone who is so cool and hip is also capable of playing classical violin just as beautifully as anyone else and loves it just as much. And to me, it's just that convergence of different groups of people and different styles, and how much we learn from all of that. So
that's great. That's so true. Thank you for sharing that, Lois. I wanted to ask you guys, during this time of COVID, the pandemic, when the Lead Center has not been able to have audiences in our auditorium or even in the pavilion, what do you think our community has lost? And do you think people are hungry to come back to the Lead Center? So this time I'll start with Lois.
Oh, I can guarantee you people are hungry to come back. And we know it because of the excitement that people had for the pop-up concerts that the Lead Center was able to do a few of, and hopefully can do some more. But in my own neighborhood, people will have concerts in their yards if they happen to play an instrument. People really, really want live entertainment. It brings the community together the way Martha mentioned earlier. And it's a very different experience than watching it online. And so, yes, I think that we have lost something, and I do believe people are very hungry to come back to live performances, as long as they feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Martha? What's your thoughts?
I think that's true. We also had a pop-up concert in our neighborhood, and folks came, and the question was, when are we going to do this again? And like Lois, we had some good performers, drummers, and they did a little jazz combo one night, and we all went. So that I was hoping that would be something we do over and over again. It's just it got cold, and so it was a little uncomfortable to sit out. But I'm kind of a hugger. I've missed hugging people. I like to smile at people. I can't always read just the eyes. Sometimes you can, and I've tried to squint a little bit more when I'm smiling under my mask. There's just something about sitting next to people and joining in applause or clapping to music or something like that that I think people are hungry for. So again, I want us to be safe, but gee, we're all ready to get back to the lead, I think.
Oh, good. We, as a staff member, and I'm sure Anthea feels the same way, that those thoughts are so encouraging, because we've sure missed everybody, and we're looking forward to getting back together in the building. So both of you ladies have served on our Friends of the Lead board, which is the board that is tasked with spreading all the great news about the Lead Center and all the great things we do. I want to ask you guys, tell us a little bit about your time on the board and what made you want to serve, and then maybe what also has been a surprise thing you've learned, because we try to educate the board members on everything we do, and what has been a surprise that you have learned from being on the board? So Martha?
Well, I've always loved music from the time I was a small child, and was very active with music lessons and choirs and marching band and playing the piano. So that's just been part of my life. I'm grateful to my parents that they emphasized that. So then we were attendees at the Lead, and I think maybe we'd started donating a bit, but at some point I was invited to be on the board, and I thought, wow, this is just going to be terrific, and it has been. I've met wonderful people from all walks of life. I like that idea on their board, that it's very diverse, so they have different ideas. This year it's been a little bit tough because we just Zoomed, and so the opportunity to share, especially with the new members of the board, some of the things backstage, some of the things that the little idiosyncrasies of some of the artists that have performed that have been fun to know about, just to get to know the background work. I don't think the board has any hesitation of thinking about those of you who work at the Lead Center, how creative and talented you are, and I think all board members are really grateful for that. But we haven't had as much opportunity to do some of the interesting things that are sort of behind the scenes. So hopefully those that continue on the board will be able to do more of that next year.
Thanks. Thank you. And you, Lois?
Well, I think that as a music teacher, I was always interested in the performing arts, and I was very happy to be an ambassador between the school district, my school, and the Lead Center years ago while I was still teaching, and I got to know about the workings of the Lead Center. But being on the board was a special kind of situation where you, like Martha said, you get to see the background of what's going on. You get a better understanding of all the work that goes on behind the scenes. But I think one of the things that I really was very impressed about was the Lead Across Kansas. I knew that it was happening, but I just didn't really understand the extent of it. and until I was actually on the board. And as a person who grew up on a farm out in rural Kansas, central Kansas, I realized how important it is for children and adults in the rural parts of our state to have access to really quality performances. And Lead Across Kansas does that. And I can hardly wait for it to expand once COVID is over and we can do more things. But I would say that's probably one of the things that was the biggest surprise and aha for me.
Well, Anthea can talk about Lead Across Kansas for days. So I'm going to turn it over to her to ask you guys a couple questions about all that she does in her very important role at the Lead Center.
Thanks, Sue. So I know that both of you, I think we'll pose this question to Martha first. So both of you, since having been on the board, have been invited and have attended a number of our school performances. So would love to hear your thoughts on those experiences. And then we'll have some other follow-up questions from that. Martha?
I think that the experiences that the children get are on an excellent level, as with all the other performances. I usually slip in and try to sit in one of the first levels there above the kids so I can watch them. Yeah, a balcony. And what fun it is to watch their responses to the performer. They laugh, they tap their toes, they elbow the person next to them to point something out. They just delight in what they're seeing. Also had a chance, I think Lois, there were several of us that went up to Sabetha with Jazzy Ash. And the kids in Sabetha came in, sat in the auditorium, and boy, did she give them a workout. I was tired at the end of it, but they loved it. So what else could you ask for than to have someone who performs that way, who gets all the kids involved, and then they love it. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I'm so happy our children and more children across Kansas are going to have that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Lois?
Well, once again, it's a similar kind of experience. I love watching the teachers, frankly, especially when someone like Jazzy Ash is there and she's getting the students all excited, and pretty soon they're standing up and dancing, and you can just see the panic on some teachers' faces. But she's so skillful in bringing them back down. And that's one of the things about the performing arts, the performances that our local children have at the Lead Center. Anthea, you're skillful at making sure they all understand what is expected as an audience member. And I think that's an important skill that children are learning too. Not just that they're coming out and having a really good experience, but they're also learning what their particular role is as a good person in an audience, to attend, to participate, to applaud, to sit down when it's time, that kind of thing. And so I think they're learning that, as well as having experiences that are so different than what they might have otherwise in terms of different types of music and different types of performances. So
yeah, thanks for pointing all that out to both of you. I think it is one of the things that we really try to do in the school performances is to give kids a live experience, right? But it's also to expose them to other people that might be different than them, right? And also, my ultimate goal is that every child, no matter how they identify in our school district, gets to see themselves at least one time on that stage.
yes,
That means bringing in diverse work as well. The other thing I'd like to say is that what I try to do at the beginning of the performance is not dictate to the kids how to behave, as in be quiet, but I try to talk to this about a shared experience.
yes,
Theirs is important as the artist, and that there's respect in that and that sharing. And, I think the kids get it, and they probably respond better than if you give them the, sit down, be quiet. That's not what we want. We want them to experience. Like Adults do.
Yes,
And
I
sometimes
absolutely agree. I'm sorry to jump in on this, but I have to say that is one of the things that I think is so beautiful about the children coming into the Lead Center and how much they are learning about that shared experience. And since I'm talking, I will also just say that I really personally appreciate the extent to which you have, especially at the secondary school level, well, no, all school levels, help children to experience very diverse situations and challenging topics in a very sensitive and meaningful way. And so I just want to say thank you for that effort.
thanks for making that comment. I think that's also important. Kids are not dumb.
Right.
Kids deal with complex things all the time, and some kids, unfortunately, more than others. And the artists that we bring in, we always see the work. We make sure it's work that is well done and handled appropriately. But sometimes it's a little challenging, and that's okay. And the kids get it. They can handle it. Thank you for, especially, I liked how you both brought up Jazzy Ash and how she is, you would talk about a master of controlling children.
Right.
When she had those 1,000 kids basically up and dancing and a mosh pit in front of the stage for a while with some of them. And then the minute she needed them to go sit back down, she handled it. They went right back down. They sat down, and then she'd throw these bombs of education on them, these knowledge things about civil rights movement and voting.
Yes.
She's a master at it. So that I'm glad that you brought her up, because she's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
So Lois, I'm going to follow up with you, because you were a USD 497 teacher. And so we also had the opportunity, which at times we do, to not only have kids come to the school, but to sometimes take artists to some of our schools to visit. These aren't necessarily artists that we bring in as part of the school performances, but these are artists that are just performing generally at the Lead Center. Mm-hmm. We had one really great opportunity one year where we had 3 different Turkish artists or groups come in. And one of those artists was Omar Farouk Tekbalek and his band. And we brought them over to Cordley, and you and your students, it was a magical thing that happened. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I hope I can do it without tears. It was such a meaningful experience. The way we did it, I felt so fortunate. I had prepared our students so that kindergarten, first graders sang a simple little song. Second and third graders sang a song, and then the fourth and fifth graders sang a song, and that was interspersed between Omar Farouk Tekbalek and his group playing Turkish music, traditional music. And our students, first of all, really enjoyed the Turkish music. I mean, it's not hard to be excited about such beautiful rhythmic music. But what was really interesting is that the piece that I had taught to the 5th and 4th graders was a Turkish folk song, Ushkadar. And Omar's group did it before we did. And my students were all, oh no, it's the same song that we said. And all I could do was say, I told you this was an important song. And so then when it was their turn to perform for the Turkish visitors, we did the piece, and it was so meaningful that Omar and his son, who was one of the performers, and the other band performer, got out their cell phones, and Omar kept touching his heart. It was so meaningful, and the kids realized just what an important connection we had made, and it was all through music. It was without having an understanding of language necessarily, and a music style that is not one that they hear on a regular basis. But it was the most profound experience, and the children just talked about it for weeks. I will never forget that.
I'll have to tell you that Omar talked about it too for the time I had with him, which was a whole week. And he said to me, that was the most meaningful experience that I've had as an artist. He goes, I've performed at the Sydney Opera House. He is world-renowned Sufi musician. I mean, he's known all over the world, right? And he was so touched by that sharing that, I mean, he just talked about it and talked about it. So kudos to you. It's amazing how think I'm sure the school district misses you a great deal because you're just such a great teacher, and you have such creative ways of connecting kids and art, and that was a prime example of that. It was really beautiful. So I know that both of you are fans of the KU Powwow Indigenous Cultures Festival. In fact, Lois has been sits on the planning committee now. She loves it so much, which is great. And so we'd love to just hear a little bit more about your thoughts on that, your experiences. This year's is virtual, and so if you'd like to share a little bit about your thoughts of that.
It's just been a wonderful experience for my husband and I to attend the powwows. Each year, it seems to me it's gotten a little better, more things to do. We have enjoyed, we see the teepee. That was one of the first things that attracted us. And we said, what's going on at KU? This was several years ago. Yeah. And then we began to find out, oh, this is going to be a powwow, and they're doing it with Haskell, and we thought that's great. And so we attended, and then each year we look forward to it, put it on the calendar. Yeah, it's just a wonderful day-long experience. So we eat. We always eat, it seems like, on these kinds of occasions. Good food. We look at the crafts. The arts and crafts are just magnificent, just amazing. And then we always spend a little bit of time in the auditorium watching the dancers, the little bitty folks who have beautiful regalia, and they're able to dance in a wonderful way, just precious, to the very advanced dancers who are just exciting to watch. So it's always one of those things, well, when's the KU powwow? Because that's something we always want to attend.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks. Lois?
Well, I can't add anything much to the excitement of actually watching the event to what Martha said, but I have really appreciated being on the committee and hope I get to stay because I feel like I've learned more than I've contributed to this particular group. And I'm sure it's because of the mix of cultures, because, it's such a wonderful group of Indigenous faculty members, students, representatives from Haskell, representatives from the community. And I've learned so much just participating on that committee, and look forward to being able to plan a powwow that's in person again for next year, hopefully.
Yeah. So. And I'd like to stress too that, it's kind of interesting that the powwow is really the First Nations Student Association's powwow, which they've been doing for, gosh, I think it's like 36 years now, maybe. And so this is how it all began, that we said we would host at the Lead Center because they had difficulties finding a place. And it was a privilege of ours to do that. And then we were like, this is an opportunity now that we got people to educate. So that's why we started working in the Indigenous Cultures Festival, working with Jancita Warrington, who is our, one of our Indigenous consultants for a lot of things. And then now our committee, is made up of the percentage of more Indigenous people than non-Indigenous. And, but it's community to really working hard together to really have impact, right? To really educate. As Jancita Warrington says, I want people to understand that Native people have a variety of histories and cultures, the food they eat, what the dwellings they lived in, the language. It's so diverse and unique and wonderful. And it's really her mission to educate folks on that. And I think the Cultures Festival is really kind of helping make that happen. And we hope to continue and expand that. So we appreciate both of you being so supportive. Let's finish on the why do you think it's important for the Lead Center to be involved in community-wide cultural events from your perspectives?
I think it's essential. And when you look at the diversity of the talented artists that come into the community, to share that with other performing arts or other artistic endeavors that are going on, builds a richness in the community. I mean, I can't imagine the world without performing artists. Can you? How dull the world would be. So it's an exciting time to go to the Lead Center, enjoy the performance, see our friends at intermission and say, oh, isn't this just wonderful? How many times have we done that? But it enriches my life when I go. And I think my friends and those around us, it just makes for a wonderful experience. It helps to remind us that we are human beings and that we care for one another, and that the enjoyment of different things, learning, as I said earlier, I think is really a critical feature as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'll just follow up on the learning aspect. I absolutely love going to a performance of a chamber group and hearing a familiar Mozart piece or something like that. But I get even more excited when I hear something that is so unfamiliar to me, that is brand new. No matter whether I find it pleasant initially or not, I love the excitement of something that I've not heard before or seen before. And so that's one of the reasons I'm so pleased about the diverse types of programming that we have at the Lead Center. And recently, well, with the jazz series, that has been wonderful. And then last year, the year before, the last time we were in person, we picked up the folk bluegrass series.
Yeah.
And, it just keeps growing. And I think as that happens, the audience there is a more diverse audience, because I go to so many different performances. I see how the audience looks for one performance and how different the audience is for another performance. And all of these people are experiencing the Lead Center and mixing with each other. And like Martha said earlier, there's people from all walks of life coming together to enjoy something that they might not have anything else in common, but they're enjoying a particular performance. And I don't think you can underestimate the value of something like that. So
yeah, I think that thank you both for those excellent words, and of course your support of the Lead Center. I think we all feel that too, right? We work at the Lead Center, but we also experience the art as well, and it can be incredibly powerful, and sometimes just joyful and joyous.
Right.
Sue?
I was going to say sometimes when we're standing in the lobby the night of a performance and we get a lot of questions about where are the restrooms, where's the ticket office, and then on the reverse leaving, oh, I can't find my car. Those are the exciting nights because we know it's a new audience for us, so it's kind of funny. It's like, oh, there must be a lot of new people here. This is great. We love that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think for our future too, it will be exciting, and I'd love to work with you all too, to find ways to reach those new audiences and to expand that and make the Lead Center a home to everybody in our community. And I think sometimes we have to put in a little extra effort for some in our community, because they just don't necessarily feel welcome there, and even just some people don't feel welcome on campus. So breaking down those walls and opening up those doors and getting more folks in would be really fantastic.
Well, and the children's performances when they're in school helps that, I think, along also, because there are children who without those school performances would never step foot into the Lead Center. And it is something that I'm confident that they remember, and as they grow older, will give some thought to, oh, I've been in that building for a concert before. I think I'm going to go to this performance or something. I think it makes a big difference in a lot of ways.
Or go to any theater performance.
Yes.
They are as adults, to know that this is a wonderful experience and not to be afraid, even though you've never been in that building before, to go ahead and find the similarities in terms of enjoyment. I think that's the education of our children about the performing arts is just one of the most valuable things that happens at the Lead.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why it's so important, you know, when they came up with the brilliant idea of making sure, 27 years ago, making a partnership with the district and saying, you know, we want all kids to come free every year, right? That we didn't want any barriers, that financial or any other kind of barrier. And that's happened. Every kid comes to a performance in the Lead Center every year in USD 497, as well as some other kids in the region. So that's a powerful story. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with folks in our community who've supported that. So kudos to you all. Beginning, when you were talking about the shared experience for us all, you started crying, and then my nose was running